The transmission came through at 0400 hours Galactic Standard Time, fragmented, static-laced, and soaked in screaming. Commander Vela Cross stood alone in the cold-lit operations chamber of Earth's Unified Defense Command, fists clenched behind her back as the distorted image flickered across the main holoscreen. Smoke. Fire. The fractured silhouette of Proxima Eden's central spire collapsing in slow ruin. Then came the sound that would never leave her. A child. Crying. A single voice in a sea of burning metal. Then silence. She didn't speak. She didn't move. The other commanders filtered in slowly, confusion etched into their faces, not yet aware that a human colony, populated by over 60,000 civilians, had just been eradicated in less than a minute. Was it pirates? General Okoro asked, trying to make sense of the senseless. No, Vela said softly, her voice thin and sharp as a razor's edge. Look again. The playback restarted. A burning sky. Civilian evac drones tumbling like leaves. Then the impossible, an obelisk of pure energy descending from the heavens, striking the colony with the force of a dying star. The energy wasn't plasma, not rail fire, not any known weapon. It was something else, something unnatural. Divine, some would say. They call themselves gods, she muttered, and now they've made it known. 3 hours later, the confirmed death toll sat at 61,408. Not a single survivor. No communications, no warnings, no demands. Only annihilation. Carved into the ground where the colony once stood was a single sigil. Alien, circular, humming faintly in frequencies that made men weep. Zorthian Pantheon. That name had circulated in ancient warnings and paranoid fringe theories for centuries. Alien beings, vast, transcendent, operating on scales humans couldn't comprehend. Worshipped by weaker races. Silent watchers, uninterested in diplomacy or conquest. Until now, the Galactic Council convened emergency talks, most races urging caution, negotiation, de-escalation. Earth's ambassador, a soft-spoken man named Tannen Yao, was interrupted and humiliated mid-speech by a Yun delegate who laughed and said, humans were tolerated. Perhaps they grew too bold. Vela didn't attend the council session. She was elsewhere, walking the rain-slick steel of Orbital Bastion 9, reading the names on a casualty wall. Among them, Liana Cross, age 6. Civilian. Her daughter. The galaxy had watched the murder of her child and responded with bureaucracy. She didn't cry. She couldn't. That part of her was ash now. When she returned to command, the room was filled with tension. Advisors, analysts, AI war simulations, all converging on one impossible conclusion. Humanity could not defeat the Zorthian Pantheon. Not militarily. Not technologically. These beings existed beyond linear time. Their ships weren't ships, but sentient singularities. Their weapons did not fire. They erased. Facing them was suicide. And yet, Vela stood at the head of the table and said, "We respond." A hush settled. General Okoro leaned forward, voice heavy. "Commander, if we retaliate, we may start a war that ends us." She looked at him. Her eyes were dry and cold. They already did. No one else spoke. No one needed to. In that moment, a terrible understanding passed through the room like a shadow stretching long before the fall of night. Not revenge. Not justice. Rage. Human rage. Quiet. Unyielding. Ancient. The first phase began within hours. Earth's black sites, sealed since the Martian insurgencies, were reopened. Biological researchers dug up long-band neural weapons. Orbital foundry rings were switched to full war production. The revenants, soldiers trained in zero-gravity assassination, cultural infiltration, and surgical psychological terror, were recalled from their deep cover. Each of them had lost someone on Proxima Eden. None of them asked why they were being activated. They already knew. Dr. Aaron Malik was pulled from his exile beneath Europa's ice, offered no forgiveness, only purpose. His mind had once created weapons considered monstrous by human standards. Now Earth needed monsters. At the heart of it all stood Vela Cross. She issued no grand speeches, No declarations of war. She only walked the command halls with surgical purpose, assembling pain into structure, structuring structure into action. The media was silenced. No public broadcasts. No leaks. Earth did not want the galaxy watching. This wasn't a war. This was something older. A reckoning. On day 5, the first Zorthian ship appeared in the outskirts of the Sol system. A herald vessel, shaped like a crystalline cathedral, its hull singing at frequencies that induced seizures in human listeners. It came bearing a message: submit and be cleansed. Earth did not respond. Instead, 3 cloaked stealth frigates launched from Luna's far side, armed with modified black hole warheads. They did not hail. They did not negotiate. The Zorthian ship was erased from existence. Not destroyed, consumed in a collapse so complete that no particles remained. Just a dead silence where once a god's voice had sung. And still, Earth said nothing. It was not bravado. It was not pride. It was rage, refined, weaponized, and fed into the quiet machinery of war. On day 6, Commander Vela stood at the edge of the chamber, alone once more. Not because she had no allies, but because no one could walk with her now. This path was hers. The fury boiling inside her had not diminished. It had crystallized into something permanent. And in that silence, staring out at the stars, she whispered, "They think themselves gods." Behind her, the holomap zoomed into the Zorthian homeworlds. Let's show them what humanity does to gods. Then she turned to her officers, each of them hardened, hollowed, sharpened. Begin Operation Ashfall. There were no cheers, no applause. Just a quiet nod and the mechanical sounds of activation codes cascading through terminals. Ships launched. AI cores awakened. Plans, years in the making, were compressed into weeks, then days. And in the distant dark beyond the stars, the gods, watchers of 1,000,000 years, stirred in mild amusement, sensing humanity's movements. They smiled. They did not know. Not yet. The dropship's interior was dark and silent, save for the low hum of magnetic dampeners stabilizing its descent. Lieutenant Mira Holt sat alone, her helmet cradled in her lap, eyes fixed on the pulsing red light above the exit hatch. It blinked in time with her heartbeat. Too fast. Too loud. She closed her eyes and exhaled, forcing calm into her bloodstream like poison in reverse. Her mission was simple: infiltrate the Zorthian relay station on Moon P-37 and disable the etheric broadcast grid. That grid linked the local pantheon to their worshippers, thousands of systems. Shutting it down would blind their so-called gods, cut them off from their divine chorus. It wouldn't kill them, but it would make them bleed. Mira wasn't a believer in anything. Not gods, not heroes, not fate. She believed in sharp blades, fast hands, and getting out alive. She had no interest in vengeance. Her sister had died on Proxima Eden, but Mira didn't fight for ghosts. She fought because someone needed to. The light switched to solid red. 20 seconds to drop. Across the channel, static flickered, then the voice of Revenant Commander Jace Tarn crackled through. Signal clean. Air's thin. Surface resistance minimal. Holt, your path's clear. Don't take detours. Wasn't planning a scenic tour, she replied. The hatch opened. Wind screamed in. Mira moved without hesitation, dropping into the black below like a bullet fired from a silent gun. The relay station loomed on the horizon, towering, skeletal, humming with alien geometry. Zorthian tech didn't follow human logic. It looked like it was grown, not built, like the bone of something vast and ancient. She landed silently, knees bent, rifle up. The terrain around the station was dead, flat dust and jagged crystal formations. No guards, no lights, just that same low-frequency hum vibrating in her molars. She moved quickly, weaving through shadows, her cloaking mesh flickering as it adapted to the alien environment. Inside, the station was worse. Dark corridors, pulsing veins of energy sliding across walls like blood through capillaries. The air was thick with ozone and something else, something like static and sorrow. She bypassed 2 wards, crawled beneath a living conduit, and reached the central node chamber. It stood in the center like an altar. Above it, a mass of tendrils fed into a floating polyhedron, constantly shifting its shape. It sang softly wrong, a chorus of broken tones. It wasn't a machine. It was alive. Not sentient, perhaps, but aware. She set the charges quickly, hands steady despite the cold sweat slicking her back. As she activated the timer, a voice echoed behind her, lilting, melodic, impossibly close. Human. She spun, rifle up. There was nothing. I watched your world burn. It sang such sweet agony. It wasn't a voice. It was in her mind, crawling, probing. Zen, she hissed, recognizing the name from the briefings. Lesser god form, tasked with observation and purification. A sadist cloaked in divine robes. He appeared slowly, coalescing from light and shadow. 7 feet tall, limbs too long, skin shifting like liquid glass. His face was an ever-changing mask of species he had exterminated. You're a broken, small thing. You grieve, yet you do not weep. You strike, yet feel no joy. You are incomplete. Mira said nothing. She fired 3 rounds, center mass. The bullets passed through his form as if through fog. He smiled with 100 teeth. You cannot kill divinity. No, she said, voice low, but I can end your song. She pressed the detonator. The station's note exploded in a wave of searing white. Energy screamed, the structure convulsing like a dying beast. Zen wailed, his form destabilizing, limbs flailing in impossible geometries. Mira was thrown into the wall, armor plates cracking, vision blurring. She dragged herself upright, blood trailing from her mouth. The relay grid collapsed around her, conduits snapping, psychic frequencies shattering like brittle glass. Zen's body began to melt, his scream shifting from godly arrogance to something raw, animal, terrified. You are madness, he hissed, his voice fracturing into static. Mira leveled her sidearm, aimed between the shards of his dissolving face. No, she whispered. I'm human. She fired. The last of him vanished in a flash of imploding light. Her extraction beacon blinked green. The revenants were inbound. Back aboard the flagship Vindicator, Dr. Aaron Malik watched the sensor readouts of the relay collapse. He looked like a man carved from tired bone, thin, pale, eyes dark as sleep debt. Yet something burned in him now. The death of Zen wasn't just a victory. It was a thesis proven. The divine were mortal. They just hadn't noticed yet. He turned to the prototype at his side, a sleek casing of obsidian metal, humming with frequencies forbidden even in Earth's darkest labs. He tapped the interface. We're ready for Phase 2, he said. Commander Vela's image appeared on the screen. Her voice was steady. Cold. Proceed. Aaron hesitated a moment. You realize once we launch, there's no turning back. We'll be beyond diplomacy. This becomes extinction level. Her eyes didn't flinch. Then make sure we're the ones still breathing when it ends. The revenants were already preparing for the next strike. Their targets weren't stations or relay points. They were temples, living fortresses orbiting gas giants, each one housing a member of the pantheon. One of them, Kor, god of judgment, had presided over the destruction of Proxima Eden. He'd not only given the order, he'd rejoiced in it, broadcasted across his dominion as a cleansing. Vela watched the footage again that night, alone in her quarters. Not because she needed to, because she refused to forget. There was no comfort left in her. No grief. Only action. Earth had always been underestimated. Not for its weapons, or its numbers, or its science. But because its enemies never understood what rage really meant to humans. Now one of their gods was dead. Another would follow. Then another. They called themselves divine. She would show them mortality. Tomorrow, they would strike again. And this time, the stars would remember. Kor had been silent for 3 days. Not because he was afraid. Gods, after all, did not fear, but because he was listening. In his cathedral temple above the clouds of Thyros Prime, he knelt within the Omega Chamber, surrounded by mirrors of living glass. Through them, he viewed countless worlds, his flocks scattered among the stars. Panic festered. Reverence waned. Something was breaking. Zen was gone. Not diminished. Not ascended. Gone. He studied the silence left in Ihulzen's place and did not understand it. Not fully, but he sensed a fracture in the divine chorus, a rent in the harmony of godhood. The mortals had done something permanent. The Zorthian pantheon was no longer whole. And still, no answer came from the others. Not from Velzurin. Not from Yureth's soul. Not even from a prime oracle. Silence. Contamination. Collapse. Zihul-Kor rose, his mirrored armor shifting in response to his movement. He spread 6 arms outward and chanted the invocation of judgment, calling on ancient forces, reaching into realms beyond matter. He demanded knowledge, and was answered with screaming. It came through the mirrors, distorted, raw, human. A child, a woman, a soldier, thousands of voices, all burning. Then a face. Familiar. Female. Scarred. Commander Velacross. Her image materialized in every mirror, staring directly at him. You burned Proxima Eden, she said. Now we're here to burn you. And then the mirrors shattered. The Vindicator dropped from warp over Thyros Prime, its hull already glowing from the gravity shear. Behind it, 20 smaller vessels fanned out, black, sleek, invisible to most sensors. They descended like falling daggers, targeting the floating temple with surgical precision. In the command chamber, Vela watched the descent unfold. She stood over the shoulders of her navigators, arms crossed, unmoving. Her eyes never blinked. Around her, crewmen barked orders, coordinated fire arcs, locked in intercept patterns. But she remained still, watching Zihul-Kor's temple draw closer, framed by a storm-racked atmosphere. He was waiting. They wanted him to. Lieutenant Mira Holt led the breach team aboard Shade 1, a low-profile infiltration craft designed to punch straight through the temple's outer skin. Her team, 6 revenants and 1 AI-bonded technician, wore stealth armor woven with reactive carbon threads. They carried no flags, no insignia, only purpose. The temple's defense systems activated as they neared. Ribbons of celestial fire streaked through the clouds, hunting the descending crafts. 1 exploded, but 3 broke through, diving into the underbelly of the divine fortress. Mira landed in a hallway of living crystal. The air was thick with heat and voices not her own. The temple whispered constantly, echoing memories of those it had judged. Each step triggered new visions, pleas, confessions, executions. Her team moved in silence, unaffected. They trained for this. At the core of the temple stood the throne of judgment, a massive pulsing structure surrounded by gravitational anomalies. In its center, Zihul-Kor waited. He was taller than the others, clad in armor that shimmered with scenes of extinction. His head bore a crown of white flame. His voice echoed through the air like tectonic plates grinding together. You dare enter this place of cleansing. Mira stepped forward, rifle lowered, not out of mercy, but out of contempt. You murdered 60,000 people. They weren't soldiers. They were children, artists, farmers. You thought we'd forget. I thought you would kneel. Zihul-Kor raised all 6 arms. Energy surged through the chamber. Myra's team staggered as gravity turned sideways, pulling at their bones. 1 revenant screamed, his body folding in on itself like crushed paper. Still, Mira walked forward. She activated the device, clipped to her back, a small orb that pulsed once, then emitted a counter-frequency. The chamber shrieked, the gravity flux destabilized, and Zihul-Kor faltered. Dr. Aaron Malik's device was doing its job. Across the temple, Earth's secondary teams planted charges at each of the major conduits. The structure wasn't just divine architecture. It was a living amplifier. It enhanced Zihul-Kor's strength, cut the lines, and he became vulnerable. Malik himself was a bored vindicator, eyes locked on telemetry, sweat beading down his neck. The calculations were narrow. If any one charge failed, the temple would regenerate, and Zihul-Kor would become untouchable again. We have 72 seconds, he said into the comms. All teams execute. Mira raised her weapon. Zihul-Kor laughed. I have judged empires, he boomed. I have shattered suns. "And we're from Earth," she replied, "where the sun burns every day and no one worships it." She fired. The armor didn't shatter, but it cracked. Enough to make Zihil-Kor take a step back. Revenants swarmed in. Close quarters now, blades drawn, moving with inhuman coordination. The god bled. Black ichor steamed from wounds. He screamed, not in pain but disbelief. "This is beneath me." Vela Cross listened from a bridge, eyes locked on the final sequence. Her voice was ice. "Detonate." The charges went off in a perfect cascade. A ripple of force tore through the temple, unraveling the lattice of divine resonance. Zihil-Kor's strength collapsed with it. He felt his knees, arms twitching, body destabilizing. Mira stood over him, visor cracked, one arm limp from the last blow. Her boot pressed against his chest. "For Proxima Eden," she whispered. Then she shoved the final charge into the breach in his armor and leapt away. The explosion turned the central chamber into a sun. From orbit, the temple folded in on itself, collapsing into a knot of gravity before detonating in a silent burst of light. No debris, no wreckage, just absence. Back on Vindicator, silence fell. Then, confirmation. Target eliminated. Commander Vela allowed herself a single breath. Not relief, not triumph, just necessity fulfilled. Malik sank into his chair, hands trembling. He hadn't thought they could actually do it. But the equation was simple now. Alien gods were mortal, and mortals could die. On the far edge of the system, the Zorathian vessel withdrew without a word. The last loyalist godship. It did not attempt communication. It did not retaliate. It simply fled. Across the galaxy, broadcast feeds picked up the anomaly. The temple's destruction spread through every channel. Races that once knelt in reverence looked to the sky with something new in their hearts. Not faith, not fear. Hope. Back in her quarters, Vela played the final moment on loop. Zihil-Kor falling, Mira standing tall, Earth's fury made flesh. There were more gods, but now they knew, and they were afraid. Velzurin the Eternal sat unmoving in the amphitheater of the Galactic Tribunal, a god bound in silence. His radiant form no longer shimmered. The chains that bound him were not forged from metal, but from harmonic null fields, designed by humans to sever his connection to the divine lattice. He looked smaller now, diminished. Mortal. Across from him, Commander Vela Cross stood without armor, her presence more severe than any weapon. Behind her, the tribunal chamber hummed with uneasy stillness. Representatives from 52 sentient species filled the seats. Some still watched humanity with fear, others with awe, a few with a new and dangerous reverence. The tribunal's presiding official, a Methari elder with translucent skin and spiraled horns, activated the record node. The room adjusted its lighting, focusing all attention on Vela and the creature once called a god. "You have been brought here to answer for your crimes against sentient life," the elder said. "Do you understand the charges?" Velzurin's voice echoed with the residue of old power. "You asked me to answer in a language born of dirt and iron. I was eternal before your stars knew light." And yet Vela said, her tone knife-sharp, "You fled when your brother died screaming." A low murmur swept through the chamber. Velzurin did not speak. He simply looked at her, eyes deep with cosmic memory. "You killed Zihil-Kor. He judged humanity unworthy," Vela replied, stepping forward. "So we judge him back." The tribunal was not designed for justice. Not truly. It had existed for eons to maintain a balance of power. But balance had been broken the moment the Zorathian pantheon turned its wrath on Proxima Eden. It had been shattered when Ihol-Zen burned, and it had become irreparable the moment Zihil-Kor's temple turned to ash. Vela continued, "You ruled through fear, worship because lesser species believed submission was survival. We've proven otherwise." "You have proven madness," Velzurin said. "You cut out the heart of the divine and wear its blood like war paint." "No," Vela said, voice quiet. "We buried our dead. Then we came for answers. And when those answers came wrapped in genocide, we responded in kind." The Methari official raised a hand. The tribunal has reached consensus. Velzurin the Eternal, you are found guilty of crimes against sentient life, including planetary eradication, forced worship, and existential threat. The sentence was not death. Humans didn't believe in making martyrs of monsters. The sentence was isolation. Velzurin would be sealed in a dimensional lock, a coffin of thoughtless void, where no time passed and no memory remained. He would not be tortured. He would simply cease, a god unremembered. The god laughed once low and bitter. You think this will end them? The others will return. We're not gone. We are echoes. They'll hear what you heard, Valus said. Humanity doesn't echo. We answer. With that, the chamber darkened. The lock was activated, and Velzurin faded from the universe. It should have felt like victory, but Vela didn't smile. There were no parades, no celebrations. Earth did not broadcast its triumphs. The galaxy already watched every move it made, waiting to see if humanity would become what it had destroyed. Instead, Vela returned to Earth in silence. She stood beneath a steel sky at the edge of the memorial crater, what remained of Proxima Eden. A fragment of its soil had been preserved and brought to the Martian surface. The names of the lost were etched into a ring of obsidian pillars. There were no flowers, only silence. That was all they ever truly owned. Mira Holt joined her without speaking. She wore a simple coat now, her weapons long stored away. Her left arm still hadn't fully healed, but her gaze was steady. Was it worth it? She asked. Vela didn't answer immediately. She looked at the horizon, where the red sands whispered in endless winds. They called themselves gods, she said finally. They thought we were beneath notice. But we taught them what it means to awaken a rage they can't control. Mira nodded, her jaw tight. And what now? Now we wait, Vela said. Because the galaxy has seen what we're capable of. Some will leave us alone. Some will seek alliances. And some will try to test us again. And we answer. We answer. Above them, Earth's defense satellites adjusted formation, subtle, constant. Humanity had not become an empire. They had become a warning. The stars were watching, whispering the name of a species that had risen not by divine right, but through relentless defiance. On dozens of planets, statues of the old gods were toppled. Ancient chants were rewritten. Those who had once prayed now sharpened blades. Not all in Earth's image, but inspired by it. Humanity had not simply broken the pantheon. It had lit a fire across worlds long smothered by holy shadow. But Vela didn't care about the legacy. She cared about her daughter. She knelt, pressing her hand against the name Liana Cross. Her fingers trembled once. Just once. Then she stood. Back aboard Vindicator, Dr. Aaron Malik reviewed the last of the Zorathian transmissions, coded fragments, desperate declarations from other god forms in hiding. They were broken, fractured. Some begged for mercy. Others promised vengeance. All of them feared the same word. Human. He shut the file. He had no interest in revenge anymore. He wanted protection. He wanted never to hear those screams again. So he kept building, not weapons, but safeguards. Not for Earth's sake, but for every race still trembling in the dark. In orbit, the Revenant fleet returned to silent patrol. They did not sing. They did not boast. They watched. And far beyond the galactic rim, in places even gods had once feared to tread, something stirred. Not in defiance, not in worship, in recognition. Humanity had reached out into the cosmos, not seeking conquest, not praying for peace, but driven by an ancient fire too long misunderstood. It was not war that defined them. It was what they became when the war was over. Not gods, not tyrants, just human. And that, at last, was enough to make the stars tremble.